Booktube, I'm Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers. It's Friday's Classics, so let's get started. Well, hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and clicking on this video to find out what it's all about and listening to me prattle on about the books that I have read. Now, if you are new here and you've yet to subscribe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it to all notifications, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future posts. All right, so my name of the channel is Dusty Book Sniffers and I am reading some very dusty books. So I am reading classics and I'm talking about them on Friday Classics. I don't put that one up every week because some are a little bit longer than others, but I generally talk about a classic book that I have been reading. I have just recently found my passion for classic books and I have avoided them like the plague during my life because I was scarred, like most people, from school. And I'm loving the fact that I am discovering books that aren't even talked about in schools or anything that I'm aware of. And I keep asking my daughters who are just about to leave school and whatnot, and they haven't discussed them either. So every Friday I try to have a classic finished. I am bringing in some shorter classics and everything as well. So that is what our video is about today. And as you can see, I have a chunky book in my hand. It is Dracula because it's October and you should read Dracula in October because it just is spooky season after all. So it is by Bram Stoker. This is my Penguin Classic clothbound edition. Now I am actually collecting these at the moment and I'm collecting them for my daughter. She has some of the other Penguin Classics on her shelf, but she doesn't have any collector's editions, and so some of the books that I know that she's really going to like, I'm getting them in the cloth bound, but I am endeavouring and I'm going to enjoy them until I'm pushing up daisies, basically, because that's when she gets them. But she may borrow them any time that she wants. They don't leave my shelf, as I said, until I'm pushing up daisies, because it's just, I like daisies. That's why I say that. Morbid, I know, but anyway, that's beside the point. That's just to make sure that my children understand that they cannot take any of my books until I'm gone, but otherwise they'll steal them. But anyway, well, Savannah will, not so much Neroli, although I'm not going to get onto that. That's a story for another day. All right, so I have read Bram Stoker's Dracula and I absolutely loved it. I reckon back in the day it might have been a little bit of a trashy novel. That's not really. I actually really enjoyed it. Now I read this along with Maria from Read Fine Books, and I believe that she's still reading it because she's been a little bit busy. But last time I checked in with her, she was up to, I think she was up to chapter 9 the last time I checked in, and I haven't checked in. I've been terrible. I haven't checked in this week, so I will check in with her after I post this video up. So this is this was published, now let me just get my notes. This was published in 1897. So I believe this falls into the Victorian era, like Victorian literature. It's a gothic horror. I've given it a 5-star rating, and I know that not everybody would agree with me on that, but I am not looking at this from an analytical point of view. I am just looking at this as a enjoyment, and I thoroughly enjoyed this story. Like, it was a really good story, and not having read it before and not real, like, I do watch vampire stuff, but I'm not into the vampire stuff, if that makes sense. So my best friend was right into Anne Rice, and is that like Vampire Lestat or something? I don't know, but anyway, she was right into that, and she was always trying to get me to read Anne Rice. And I haven't really read a lot of vampire stuff. There's been you know, some trashy sort of novels like the True Blood series, and I think there was like 13 books in that. They weren't very big books. They were only like 250 to 350 pages, but I read them back in the 2008, 2009, whenever they came out. I ended up, they weren't all out here in Australia. I ended up buying mine from the UK, and yeah, and then I was spewing because I couldn't get the last book in the series, and I actually ended up reading that on Kindle. I don't actually have a physical copy of that because it was yellow here, and it didn't match the box set that I got. So whereas all the other books outside that box set actually matched it. And yeah, and anyway, I digress. We're not talking about that one, but that's, and like I've read the Twilight books, and so I've read some of the popular ones in recent times, but I've never read any of the classic vampire, where this all stemmed from and all the rest of it. So you've got a few characters in this one. Let me just have a look. We have Jonathan Harker, which the story starts out with him, and he is traveling to Dracula's castle, and you know, everybody's really wary, and they're all a bit, oh, why are you going there, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, and there's some weird stuff that happens on the way there, and then he gets there, and yeah, and then there's just, the story goes on from there. I know that a lot of people haven't read this, and I know that there's a big MJ from MJ Reed, and Heather from Heather, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of your channel. I'll put it along the bottom here. Okay, go and check her out. She's great. She has a book hub called I Read Dead People, and they're doing Dracula as well. So they've got a whole heap of stuff happening in November for Dracula. So I know this is going up, so I'm not, and I know that they watch my channel, so I'm not going to give any spoilers here, and I'm going to join in the discussion with them over there, and all the rest of it as well, in both their Discords. And yeah, so I was really, really happy with how the story played out. It was written in diary journal, or however you want to word that, depending on which part of the world you come from, but they were entries into a journal. We've got, as I said, we've got a few characters in there. There's 2 female characters, and then the rest are all male. As I said, we've got we have Mina and Lucy, which are the 2 females, and then we've got Dr. Stewart, Van Helsing, and I believe, if memory serves me correctly, I did not write it down, Lucy's love interest was Mr. Morris. So there is letters between Lucy and Mina, and then there's diary entries that I believe Mina is transcribing later on in the book for the Doctor, and she does shorthand and stuff like that, and so she's transcribing his entries. There's a few characters that are revolved around, or one main character revolved around him. But it's basically following the story of Jonathan meeting Dracula, then, and this is sort of in the first part of the book, so this is a tiny spoiler, but it sets the premise for the book. Okay, so the reason Jonathan is going to meet Dracula is because he's purchased a house for him in England, and so he's going over there to show him everything about the house, about the house, and finalize all the details and all the rest of it, so Dracula can then move to England. Right, so that is the premise of the story. That is all I'm going to tell you on that, and it flows on from there. So all the characters are in it right up into the end except for one of them. And yeah, so basically, and I'm not going to tell you which one that is, but it goes along really well. I found it to be paced really well, and I think that is because it's set up in the journal entries, so you're flipping from one character to another, and you're getting multiple point of views of the same situation. So there's a couple of parts in it that I was reading involving the garlic, and I just kept thinking to myself, oh, could you just imagine that? And I bet you all screw your nose up as well when you get to it, if you haven't read it. And if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. So as I said, I've given this a 5-star rating. I thoroughly enjoy it. I don't know why this is not taught in schools. I think kids would be so more receptive to reading the classics if they put some of the fun books in there. Now this is got pretty dark content, but it's not graphic dark content. It probably was scandalous for its day, but yeah, and I can see why pop culture has really grabbed hold of this and gone with it. So now what my plan is to do is to basically I'm going to reread this, and I'll probably slowly read it along with the group read as well, and just dive into a few extra areas that I wanted to come back to. I've taken a few notes that I want to come back to, and just dive a little bit deeper in it. Now, these Penguin Classics, they have in their books, they have a preface, then they have the author's chronological part, and then they have an introduction, and then they give you some further reading to do, and then they'll have a note on the text in the back. So yeah, and the introduction actually comes with a bit of a warning in it. So it says, new readers are advised that this introduction makes details of the plot explicit. So it gives spoilers away in it. So I haven't read that, and I still haven't read it, even though I've finished the book. I don't want to read it. But all it does say in here that Charlotte Stoker wrote to him in London, and no book since Shelley's Frankenstein, or indeed any other at all, has come near to yours originally, or terror. So it and then it just goes on, and that's just a letter that she has written. Then I believe that is his mother. So yeah, and it just gives you like the timeline of Bram Stoker as well. Like it gives you little snippets about him when he was born. So he was born in Dublin to Charlotte and Abraham Stoker, and he was the third child of 7. So it gives you like little details about the author. It also and gives you timestamps. So 1854 to 64, after long incapacitating childhood illnesses, he finally goes to a school with Reverend William Woods in Dublin. He goes on to the Trinity College in Dublin, and it just goes on from there, and it talks about Walt Whitlam and the connection there. It also goes on about other things that he has written. In 71 to 74, opens the debate paper entitled Walt Whitman and Poetry of Democracy. In May, he sees Irving again and in Dublin, and then in November he writes the Theatre Review, which was unpaid for the Dublin Mail. And then it also tells you that Sheridan is a LaFanu, I think is how you pronounce it, Camilla, which is another another classic based on the vampire. And then it just goes on like throughout. So you've got a really good chronological of his life, and right up until his death as well, and where he's actually buried and everything in there. So, as I said, I haven't read the introduction, and I probably won't read that until after the group reads have all happened. As I said, I was reading this in October with Read Fine Books, and I believe Maria and MJ are actually hosting with Heather of I Read Dead People. They have things that happen on their channels over the course of the month. And yeah, and then it's got the table of contents as well, and just tells you all that sort of stuff. And it's all, as I said, it's all diary entries. And the what is it, the word for it? Oh, it's escaping me right now. I'll put it down on the bottom. My memory's not, like, I'm just having one of those days today. It's cold and miserable here. Like, we are supposed to be, at this time of year, it's normally up near the 30s, and it's cold, miserable, overcast. I've got my woolen, I've had to go and pull my woolens back out. And then it just goes into, it's got notes and all that sort of stuff. It's got about the dedication, and then it goes chapter by chapter, the different references and all that sort of stuff through it as well. So you've got all that in the back of the book, which is quite substantial. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the story. I loved how it played out. And I know not everybody's going to agree with me, because I have seen some people say that they really didn't like it or anything like that. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to disagree. I actually really enjoyed it, and I like the story. I can really see why pop culture ran with it, and how people have just built on this story and gone that little bit further and stuff like that. Of course, you've got your trashy novels like Twilight and the Charlene Harris's ones, you know, where they well, Charlene Harrison's a little bit dark, but you know, Twilight, they sparkle. Like, I mean, really, come on. Oh, Edward. But yeah, so I can understand why people have now, like, this has done that. And like, I like how it ended. I felt that it was a little bit rushed. That's probably the only thing that the negative I have to say. It was almost like I was reading along, and it was almost like Bram Stoker just got bored with the whole story, and he just thought, you know what, I'm just going to wrap it up. And that's sort of how it felt to me. I mean, the book could have went on and on and on, and it ended at a really good point. But I did feel that Van Helsing's narrative at the end just wrapped it up a little bit too quick for my liking. I like my endings to draw out a little bit. I like things to, you know, get explained a little bit more and stuff like that. I guess that's why I like epilogues so much, because, you know, the story ends, but then the author still had some vision of where that character was going to go and all that sort of stuff. And the only other thing I could probably say, I think there could have been a little bit more vampire stuff in it. There was a lot of alluding to stuff to the, you know, like this was happening and that was happening. And the character, I was a little bit confused by the character that was in the mental asylum, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But they're probably the only negatives that I have, and that just comes down to not understanding that character. That just comes down to I may have missed something, I got interrupted and lost my train of thought with it. You know, all those things that can happen when you're talking about like reading a classic, you know, and you're also reading essentially a different language, because everything's written different and all the rest of it. Although I am getting a much more abreast with the language and how it's worded and what it means and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not stopping nowhere near as much now to double check that I am positive that that's what that means. 9 times out of 10, I have it correct in the way it's supposed to be perceived. But every now and again, a word will trip me up and I'm like, I'm not too sure about that, and I'll go and check it. But I'm getting a lot better the more and more that I'm reading. But if you have not read Dracula, and you're looking for something with some spooky vibes, this is not a gory book by a long shot. This is more alludes to gore, but it doesn't describe it. In my opinion, it is not a gory book. It is just very much a great story. And a little bit of a suspenseful story too, because you're like, ooh, is it going to happen? Like, are they going to? Or will they? You know, like there's a little bit of intrigue, I guess is the word that I'm looking for there. But yeah, like I found myself going, oh my God. And I could not put this book down at all. Like in fact, I got in trouble off Miss Maria because she's like, slow down, woman. I'm like, I can't. So yeah, so I got reprimanded for reading too fast, but I'm going to read it again. Does that count? But yeah, it's a 5-star read from me. If you haven't picked up Dracula and you would like to pick up something that is a classic, I with my whole heart recommend that you pick this book up, give it a read. Don't read it as fast as I did. Take your time with it. Dive into be a little bit analytical if you want to, but I don't like to read stories like that. I think it robs my enjoyment of it, but I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I am going to keep recommending that you read this. But that is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Make sure you keep turning those pages, and I will see you all again next time. Bye for now.